Because man cannot build or plough between the tides, this thin band at land's edge has remained as a ribbon of refuge, drawing millions of people each year. But the sea is also for ships, and of the vast tonnages now afloat, the largest portion carries oil. Accidents like this could well have happened more often. Now we face a future of more and bigger tankers, an increase in dangerous cargoes of all types, and the threat to our coastlines occupies the thoughts of many men. In the world at large, there is at last a growing concern about man's environmental mess. Here are a few steps on the long road to remedy. In Paris, the furnaces of 4 factories transform a city's garbage into electric power and steam for central heating. A mountain of junk reduced to a small pile of useful scrap metal. Thousands of chimneys traded for one, and this one filtered. Chimneys can be controlled. Pittsburgh, once the smoky city, spent $450 million on a clean air program, which revitalized a dying city center. Pittsburgh, from national joke to urban resurrection, in less than a generation. There is concern about health, about water and soil quality, about chimneys and exhaust emissions. Very slowly, vigilance begins to replace indifference, and technology, which did so much to accelerate the problems of pollution, now turns its powers increasingly towards their remedy. In the Ruhr, water quality is regionally controlled. In one instance, a single sealed stream takes the wastes of a large industrial and urban area. Here, the main treatment effort can be concentrated, and the sludge used to fuel a specially designed power station. The Rhine has been called the sewer of Europe, but this chemical plant on its bank shows what can be done by private industry. Here, massive treatment works will ensure that water returns to the river far purer than it was drawn out. To do this kind of thing costs millions. Not to do it would cost us our rivers. The complexity of all pollution problems is exemplified by Lake Erie. It involves 25 polluted rivers and the sewage of 9 million people, 118 towns and 146 industries, in 5 US states and 1 Canadian province. Who then is responsible? And what is each one's share of the responsibility? Nevertheless, the Erie problem is in hand. A concerted $1.25 billion program to return the most polluted of North America's Great Lakes to full health and usefulness. This was no disaster. This was any day in any ocean. The daily dumpings of 1,000 ships. But the load-on-top system of tank washing, adopted by 3/4 of the world's tankers, has now reversed this tide. Tonnage grows, but pollution from tankers, at last, declines. Research by almost every car manufacturer and oil company in the world. Research for performance and efficiency. Now joined by a new objective, the smog-free car. In absolute terms, perhaps unattainable. In practice, attainable to a large degree. Much has been attained already. Every year brings more money and more resources to the fight. The Wigan Alps, one of several projects to restore Britain's derelict areas. In a few years, there will be ski slopes here, woods to walk in, lakes to picnic by. But better than restoration is prevention. Industry can be sited obtrusively or unobtrusively. What cannot be hidden by contour or camouflage can be screened by trees. Industrial landscaping, California style. Man-made islands masking oil installations with screens and palm trees. Beneath is an offshore oil field. Each dummy apartment building houses a drilling derrick. Which way will the city go? Up? Over? Under? Outwards? Downwards? Whatever happens, unless we are prepared to pay for better ways of speeding urban traffic, the city and the motor car are going to die on each other's sword points. Some say that more roads beget more traffic. Others, that activating several million cars is not the main problem of cities, but the quality of life for those who live in them. The quality of life. There is a balance somewhere, if we can find it. We have long ago lost Eden, but we need not live in a wrecker's yard. It is time to clean up and time to pay for it. Time to accept that the free ride is over. Not long ago, the world was big and people few. Our resources of air, water, and soil seemed beyond all danger. Quite suddenly, the world seems small, and people many. Nothing is inexhaustible, and no harvest is endless. There is no staying technology's tide. Industrial progress brings problems, but answers too. Cleaner fuels, softer detergents, safer insecticides. In due course, we will have answers to all the technical problems of environment. But technology alone, without some much more widespread change of heart, cannot banish this shadow of progress. In the end, it is up to people. We can have a cleaner world if we are willing to pay for it. For a clean world is a world in which man works best. And in the long run, it is the only kind of world which can work best for man.
Every day the world is using oil. 40 years ago, we were just getting used to the sight of a motor car filling up at the roadside. Nowadays, oil products have to be found for 100 times as many cars. Besides aircraft, and ships, and industries of every kind. In fact, if there were no more oil, all this would stop. Of course, everybody knows that oil comes out of the earth. But the question is, how did it get there, and what is it made of? Well, that story is as old as the hills. About 100 million years ago, when the world was young. You could hardly imagine a more unlikely looking place. But our oil story begins here, on the seabed. In those days, there was a continual shower of dead sea creatures and decaying vegetable matter falling from above. Most of it was too small to be seen with the naked eye. But in a microscope, some of the creatures would look like this. For many millions of years, the remains of sea animals and plants, large and small, rained down and sank into the soft mud on the sea floor. Most of this mud comes from the hills inland. Up there, the rocks are cracked by the frost. Then the ice melts, and they're gradually broken up by the weather. Then the rains come, and the rivers carry the mud away down to the sea, where it spreads out far and wide, and finally settles on the bottom. The coarser, sandy particles have been dropped near the shore, but the finer stuff may be carried 50 miles or so out to sea. So fresh layers of salty mud are continually pressing down on the older beds below. Under their weight, the surplus water is squeezed out, and the lower beds gradually pack down and harden into rock. Now, every thimbleful of this great mass of mud and rock holds a number of particles of decaying animal and vegetable matter. The particles lie just as they fell, but time has worked a change in them. They have been chemically altered, perhaps with the help of bacteria, to produce minute blobs of oil and gas. Each new blob of oil finds its way into every available opening and tends to float upwards. Obviously, it'll take a very large number of these scattered blobs to provide oil in any quantity. But this part of the seabed was continually sinking, and as fast as it sank, fresh layers of mud arrived on top. So you can see that in the course of time, these layers of old seabed reached down to a very great depth. Now we'll forget about the surrounding land and sea for a moment and consider this great mass, miles wide and several thousands of feet deep, of slowly hardening mud. If all those scattered